Enjoy the ride with Crystal Petry Consulting.
Hello, my name is Crystal Petry, and welcome to Season 3 of the Crystal Petry Podcast. On today, we are having a very important discussion. How can we, as a community, wherever you are, help curb youth juvenile crime? And here to educate us and give us some ways to help our youth, we have Joe Evans Jr. So welcome to the podcast, Joe.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Yes. So before we get started, I just need to tell you this, that we're in Season 3, like I said on my podcast. I have interviewed over 100 guests at this point, but you, and I don't know if you remember this, were my very first guest.
For real? I do remember that. How long ago was that?
You were my first guest.
For real?
So, yeah.
Was it a good interview?
It was a great interview.
I barely remember
about
that.
2 years ago now.
You know, ironically, I've done probably hundreds of podcast interviews, so I think that was a good thing for both of us because from that point on, it never stopped.
Oh, I opened the floodgates for you.
I remember. You got Dante Miller too, right?
I did.
Chief Miller, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
He was next because that's who you was like, you got to talk to.
Okay,
yes.
I do remember.
Yes, so thank you.
Yeah, you had Judge Freeze recently.
I
and
did.
I taught you some more names too. I think it'll probably be good.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. But I just want you to know that it started with you. And anytime people ask me, well, who is your favorite interview? I'll always say you.
Really?
Yes, because you were the first.
I appreciate it. That's groundbreaking. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I still got, because you know what's funny, I still got my mouse pad and everything you gave me too.
Oh, yeah.
It's always hard to find mouse pads, but I do keep it. You know, my girls try to steal it because it's like orange and it's like,
right.
Wait a minute, I thought you didn't use mouse,
right.
Because they don't. But yeah, so I do remember.
Yes. So thank you.
Yes.
And here we are again in
Once
Season
again.
3. Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful.
So we have a completely different topic today, something, very serious. I feel like we're located in Southeast Texas, but I feel like every community is dealing with youth, juvenile crime, but more so youth making bad decisions and bad choices.
Right.
And you are the executive director of a new foundation, Revision Foundation.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Revision Southeast Texas is named Revision Southeast Texas primarily because it's a spinoff from Revision Houston.
Okay.
So Revision Houston's probably been in operations probably for about 20 years, started by a gentleman named Charles Rotrammel. And the design was to basically meet youth in their most vulnerable times, whether it be coming out of foster care or CPS or coming out of the juvenile justice system. Revision Houston primarily focused on youth who have been juvenile justice involved, and they wanted to make sure that they, one, gave the children and the students the tools to maintain beyond their mistakes. And then the next part was to make sure that they didn't reoffend. And then thirdly, prepare them for a successful life and how to be a wholesome adult and be a productive citizen. So, and that program is really, really neat. They do a lot of vocational type things with the students. And we do a lot of counseling. We pay for counseling, therapy. If students need glasses, anything we can do to help facilitate growth in young people, especially those who are either currently involved in the juvenile justice system or are very vulnerable and headed down that path.
Now, one of my previous guests, Judge Gordon Freeze, this is, I guess, a baby of his. Did he bring this to Southeast Texas?
No.
How was he involved?
So, Miss Regina Rogers was pretty much the biggest instrumental part that brought Revision Southeast Texas to Jefferson County or Beaumont. And she works a lot with that Houston organization. She saw that it was just an amazing organization, of course. She founded the IEA program, which we work very closely with, and actually I'm a pretty big part of that still. But it was a program to kind of work alongside IEA, which for years was the only type program of its kind.
And real quick, explain to us what IEA is and what does that acronym stand for?
So IEA stands for Inspire, Encourage, Achieve. And IEA is also a mentorship program that partners with juvenile probation to help make sure that the children do not reoffend. And so some of the biggest differences between the two programs is that IEA is a court-ordered program, so when a child is placed on juvenile probation, they're ordered into that program. We help them finish community service. We try to provide counseling. We do positive life skills classes. We do Camp Bright Star every year that helps expose our children to the industrial world, ExxonMobil, Valeros of the world, the Motivas. Just because so many of these places are in their own backyards, and they never understand that those places exist and that they can have great careers in those places. And also, we work closely to make sure that we get them on campuses at the Institutes of Higher Education, Lamar, LIT, and probably this summer even Lamar, Port Arthur, because we want them to know that, listen, these dreams are obtainable and they're at an arm's length. You just got to reach out and grab them, and guess what? We're going to help you reach out and grab them. And so that's been something that's been really instrumental. Revision is not court ordered; it's purely voluntary. And revision not only works with juvenile justice involved youth, but we try to do some preventative work too. Okay. We try to work and identify those students who are on the path to get themselves involved with the juvenile justice system. So we try to work with the schools, the communities, churches. You can make a referral if you know a child who's in need or headed towards crisis. And so revision is more of a preventative approach. My goal is to try to kind of differentiate the two programs more by focusing more with IEA with younger kids, because the offenders are getting so young, and then help with our older kids who are beyond middle school, moving into those high school years, probably moving into towards adulthood faster than they would want to, because they probably have children. Or need to. Yes. They probably have children. They're probably the oldest in their family. So getting them prepared for the workforce, and just once again trying to be that guiding light and that listening ear to make sure that kids have a positive role model.
So walk me through the referral process. So someone, example, me or one of my listeners, they would see a child fighting, and then they give you a call. What is that process? How do you identify? How do we identify?
So lately we've been getting a lot of referrals from some of the school districts, and that's because they know me and they know what I do. So and being on the school board is also a blessing too, because it's a beautiful marriage in that form too, because you build those relationships within the school districts, and then you can help bridge the gap between some educational needs that the child may have. But for example, one of the referrals I recently received was from a parent. She went to the guidance counselor and the wellness coordinator, and that wellness coordinator said, "Hey, you may reach out to Revision." Mm-hmm. And they went on the social media page, sent me an inbox, and then we sent them the referral information over. We should have the website up pretty soon, and I'm glad you asked for that, because I'll make sure we get those referrals on the website, and of course, accessible so people can grab them, fill them out, and send them in. But so we'll take the referrals from grandparents that say, my grandkid is just leaving the house when they want to, doing whatever they please, grades are dropping, probably smoking marijuana, and I'm afraid, because those are all telltale signs that the kid is moving in the wrong direction.
Yes.
And it kind of snowballs in that similar fashion. So they'll send a referral. Of course, a lot of juvenile probation officers send the referrals because we are almost embedded in the juvenile detention center. We're there a lot, working with the kids, providing mentors, counseling, substance abuse therapy. So anyone from the community can make a referral. Social media is probably going to be the best medium right now, just because it was the fastest and easiest one we can bring up. But you just gave me a terrific idea with putting that referral on the website.
Yes.
Sometimes it gets overwhelming, so I hate to use this phrase, but miss opportunities, because it's just not enough case managers and mentors. We've been blessed to get more, so that's something that we also need.
And if someone wants to volunteer, if they want to mentor, what are you looking for? Kind of what are the qualifications, and how do they do that?
So Revision partners with the faith-based community. Period.
Okay.
Not purely, but that's where we start. So we partner with the faith-based community. So remember, I told you our learning center is upstairs at First United Methodist Church. Mm-hmm. We have a learning center there where we'll start doing GED prep next week. We'll start doing the driver's ed class to make sure students are at least getting their permits, or at least, because they don't even think about that. They don't
Right,
even think
your driver's
about,
license.
Yeah, right. So they don't even think about those types of things, and so we'll do that. We will work on, we have a fatherhood class that we'll work on. We have young fathers, 14, 15, 16-year-old fathers. So,
or children themselves.
So, we're going to partner with one of the local pastors too. He'll come in and from a faith-based perspective, teach them how to be a father, kind of give them some of those basic fundamentals and stories of fatherhood from a father who has sons himself. So, those are the types of things that we do. What was you asking me? Because I don't know if that was
about volunteers.
Volunteers. So
yes.
Yeah. So Revision partners with the faith-based community, and we attempt to bring in members of the faith-based community. But anyone can volunteer. It's you fill out an application, you do your background check, and voila. We'll train you. We'll do orientation. We'll walk you through the process. And the biggest thing we ask mentors to do is listen. You're not there to be a disciplinarian. Now, of course, you want to provide guidance.
Right.
But you're not there to scold, just to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And then let the conversation and relationship flow from there. We want our mentors to be cognizant of needs. Certain kids will need certain needs. Maybe educational, maybe mental health, maybe food, or clothing, or sometimes shelter. And so we try our hardest to either help provide those resources or reach out to the community and figure out where we can get those resources, put into that child and that family's life.
And I'll make sure and get the social media, the website, once you guys get that,
Yes.
Contact information. So if people want to volunteer or donate, then I'll have that information for them. But speaking of donate, are you guys accepting monetary donations?
So on our Facebook page, there's a QR code so you can make electronic contributions, or you can mail a check, and all that information is on the Facebook page as well. So yes, we're a nonprofit, so we have to raise money to sustain life. So that's a part of being a nonprofit. But yes, outside of volunteers, we do accept contributions for both organizations, for IEA and for Revision. Definitely for Revision because it's new. And while we're already gaining momentum and there's already a large amount of data that supports the track record that we know we'll have, IEA has that proven track record because they've been in the community for so long. But we're moving in that same exact direction, and there's no shortage, unfortunately, of children who need help.
As the executive director of Revisions of Southeast Texas, this could be me, Joe, but I feel like youth, juvenile crime is really increasing now. But it could be me. Maybe it's always been in abundance and I just was not paying attention to it.
No,
what do you think?
I think statistically you'll probably notice that crime and arrest are probably down overall.
Okay.
But the nature of the offenses are more serious, more violent, more egregious.
Okay.
So that's why it's been so prominent. So, if you look back to the early 2000s, it was probably going to be drug possessions, burglaries, shoplifting, things like that. If you go back to the early 90s, up to the 2000s, it was going to be, once again, drugs, kids sneaking out, stealing mom's car. Mm-hmm. Once again, shoplifting was big. But beyond the early 2000s, maybe the 2010s, the nature of the offenses became far more egregious. The violence became prevalent. Deaths became regular, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And they were all by juvenile offenders, and it's scary because we talked about it earlier. You don't even your brain's not even developed enough to make the proper decision.
Exactly.
So you still can't comprehend in most cases that that's a life
that you've taken,
mm-hmm. and in return, your life
is taken. And I always say that, and some people, push back on me for saying this, but some people understand it, that when you have, since we're talking about juveniles, when you have juveniles that take another life, I see that as two lives been taken.
It's 2 lives.
the person that was murdered, unfortunately, but also the juvenile, because your life is over from that point.
Right.
I mean, you can come back because, we live in a country where you can make different choices and come back, but the road is difficult.
The road is difficult and the chances are slim. And not only 2 lives, but 2 families in these cases are drastically impacted and changed forever. Especially with when you have 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds committing these egregious, heinous crimes that carry 20 to life, type sentences, that destroys futures. That destroys families' futures. That's traumatizing to siblings that are younger, on both sides of it. And that's why we do the work that we do, because we want to make sure that we lead with love and compassion, and we want to make sure that there shouldn't like. I always think about Ms. Rogers. She does not use the H word, and that's hate. And I won't say it, but she said we don't use that word because everything bad stems from that. Whether it be artificial hate because you think you should hate someone because of a neighborhood or a gang, or because of perceived wrongdoing, don't let that sneak in and take over, because when that happens, bad things happen. So,
Do you think it's systematic? What is causing our juveniles to start committing such heinous, egregious crimes? Is it systematic within the juvenile justice system, within the school districts, which I know you work in the school districts, so you have a live point of view for that one?
I think there's a lot of hopelessness and despair, and in some form or fashion, we've managed to lose our sense of where we should be going as a society. And so for so long we never addressed people's mental health illness, mental health issues, but now we do. And then, a problem there is we can't over assume that these are mental health issues, because while some may be mental health, some may be pure like lack of just awareness of who you are as a person, or just learned behavior that's just horribly bad, or substance abuse that drives you to do certain things and make certain decisions. So I think our educational system has been an afterthought for too long, and I think that's a lot of what we're seeing now, because an uneducated populace is a dangerous populace, because who takes lead, and what are you leading with, and what are you leading by? The young kids I talk to, they hang on every word I say. So if I'm telling them something bad at that age, being so impressionable, that's the route that they'll take. So I think education has really, really suffered due to just a lack of awareness and just want. Any entity in this world you fund, you cater to, you examine closely. And so people say, we used to produce doctors and lawyers and engineers. Yeah, but we used to put a lot of stock into education. Now we don't. Yeah. Now it's become a situation where, for example, even in our state, we know for the last decade, the funding mechanism for public ed has not changed. So now, all of a sudden, they say, we need to reform education, and we're going to come with these education saving accounts or vouchers. Why change it?
Right.
Why reinvent the wheel? Why not just fix what you have? You want to spend $1 billion for a brand new system. Why not just put that $1 billion into the right place?
Absolutely.
It would be much easier to, fix something that's not broken, but it just needs some maintenance and upkeep and up. And every other entity we do, we have superior military because we know we need to spend money in military. Our law enforcement continues to evolve using technology to solve crimes because we knew we had to spend money to evolve. Everything evolves except for public education when it comes to funding. It's always year in and year out, local districts begging the state, and in some cases the federal government, for extra dollars to educate our future. That's a problem. It's a problem when we receive $6,000 per student a year to educate a child, but we spent upwards of $60,000 to $100,000 to incarcerate, rehabilitate, or send all over the state.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so
those numbers are crazy.
Those numbers are crazy, and they would sound exaggerated. And I go back sometimes and I look, and I say, okay, it costs $20,000 plus to send this child to a placement. You've incarcerated them for X amount of days. That's going to cost several $1,000s. You had to feed them. You had to make sure you had medical care. You had to do all these things, send them to rehabs. Well, what if we would have spent this money on the front end? You know, developing the whole child.
Yes.
Mentally, emotionally, physically, just a little bit more, you know. And I guarantee you that the result will be different. And I know the adage is that, oh, there's a lot of waste, and there is. There's no doubt that there is. But once again, give us a chance to work on that. Give us a chance to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars and watch your educational system blossom and watch the juvenile crime go down.
Right. And I feel like, is that what revision is trying to do, fill in that gap?
Sure. I think that's a good way to look at it, because we do. So once again, so right now actively we help facilitate counseling and therapy probably for close to a dozen children.
Okay.
These are children who are either under or no insurance, or it could be just as simple as a transportation barrier that keeps them from getting therapy. Well, we cover that cost through contributions from the community and grants, because it's just easier and then it makes sense. So now all of a sudden you put a child in a situation where they are getting therapy weekly or bi-weekly, and you see the change and the progress. You know, you really notice it, you really see it, and it's just one of those things that, you know, we have to really take a serious look at how do we bolster these programs, because I'm glad that we can do it, but we can't do it for the number of kids who really need it. So I'm always cognizant of, like, I have a therapist that we work closely with, and I'm always saying, what's your capacity? And then I'm going back to my board saying, can I get a little bit more money? And they've been great about it, because we've been blessed to receive that funding, but it's not a promised thing. So, you know, we do it with the hopes that we can continue to perpetuate the needs. I mean, help perpetuate supporting and giving these students what they need through social and emotional, counseling and therapy, substance abuse therapy, you name it. You know, we want to try to make sure that we're doing it.
Okay, so I hate to ask you this question, but I'm going to ask.
Sure.
Whose fault is it, the juvenile crime? Is it the schools? Is it, because the schools will say it's the parents or the lack of parental guidance at home. Is it the police officers? The police officers will say it's someone else. Who is it? The community? Whose fault is it? Because we are dealing with children here, and a lot of times, and you know, our laws and things are built around these are children. You know, they're not responsible for the things that they do. I mean, parents are the ones that get in trouble if the kids don't go to school. So, whose fault is it? Who's to blame?
It's definitely not law enforcement's fault.
Okay.
Because they're put in a worse position, because their job is to serve and protect, and unfortunately, they're having to protect our society from our children. That shouldn't be that way. So you can't blame law enforcement.
Like not right coming out.
How bad does it sound when you really listen to it? You know, right? But that's just the case. So parents take a lot of heat, and in some cases it's well deserved heat, but in some cases it's not. You know, some children. I look at myself as a juvenile delinquent. I did not have to behave the way I did. My parents were good parents. My mother prayed, worked, you name it. Did my mom and dad divorce? Yes, they did. But guess what? I had a good stepmom and stepdad. I had
you was blessed.
Come on now. Yes. My stepmom treated me well, spoiled me at times. Yeah. My stepdad taught me values, work. You know, gave me my first job. You know, so I had no excuses. But I still was more interested in what was going on, because the allure of the streets was far more captivating than going to work and going to school.
Right.
You know, so that's what was my issue. So I think that's another problem, that, you know, the good guys haven't done a good job at getting the message out, and making, you know, being a strong, positive person, then it is not attractive to young people, because, we live in this time of instant gratification. They want everything now. They want money fast. They want this fast. Everything is at your fingertips. And so that really, hurts us as a society. But going back to whose fault it is, I think we've unfortunately created a perfect storm for these things to happen. The pandemic did us no favors
at all,
because we lost social skills, and social skills, like any other skill, if you don't use it, you will lose it. So when I look at a child who I'm very close with, who's 12 years old, and he's in the juvenile justice system, and when I was reading his psychological evaluation, it reminded me that he was second grade when the pandemic hit. So now all of a sudden, he didn't get the educational skills and support that he desperately needed. Child born addicted to drugs, drugs in the system when he's born. He needed extra support. He was not going to function in front of an iPad with no instruction or no supports. And so in those formative years where he needed to build the educational foundation, he couldn't. So now you fast forward, and through the years, his behavior progressively worsens, but it's because, what do you expect? He was cooped up in the house in the years where his brain should have been receiving the most developmental aid that you could possibly give a child in his situation, that he never got it. And then we tried to accelerate his learning to catch him back up or get him caught up. Well, that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
And so when you look at him,
and then you punish them because they can't keep up with this accelerated learning.
Right. So he turns to crime because that's the only thing he feels like he can do, that he's good at, and it's the only thing he knows to a degree. And then you look at his story, and that's the story of hundreds of kids across our district that were in that same thing, because he's not the only 12-year-old we have. We look at our 7th grade scores in reading and math and all those things, and they're way down. And the reason why is because we lost some critical years early on. And people say, well, you can't keep blaming the pandemic. Well, you kind of can. When you look at the numbers, you kind of can, because it really dealt us a serious blow to our educational system, which in turn I think has given way to the juvenile crime that we continue to see. And then parents are younger. So, one of the things that IEA does is they focus on parents. We try to get parents. We do parent projects. We try to do anything we can to support and uplift the parents, to teach them how to parent. And, for you and I, that may come as like, what do you mean how to parent? You lead with love, and then you make sure that every decision you make is in the best interest of.
But if you're 14 and 15, you do not know that.
No clue. And then your mom may be very young.
Yes.
And then, and people also tell you something too. For me, I remember coming home maybe 2nd, 3rd grade with a key. Safety pin to my underwear. So that only grew. That only worsened, and then leaving
Don't
kids.
open the door for anybody. Don't answer the phone.
Right.
Yes.
So, but that left kids to raise themselves. And when you leave a child with a developing brain, then to raise themselves, then you're going to get all types of different outcomes. Kids were abused a lot more, which caused trauma. We see sexual abuse rampant, which causes trauma that people never recover from. And those are the reasons why I say we're in the situation that we're in. So whose fault is it? It's kind of been a number of factors that have created a perfect storm for where we are. And I truly believe the only way you will get it back is to put everything you have into the educational system. Because if you do not educate these kids, they will not grow up to be productive citizens. They will be left to their own devices, and we're all animals. And so as an instinct, you want to survive. And if that means taking, robbing, and stealing to survive, that's what they're going to do. Because ultimately, if they go to prison, they're going to survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's sad, but, it's an easy out for some people. Especially when all you've lived is a life of crime, all you've seen is a life of crime, and you know that the way that this ends is me going to prison for an extended period of time. then that's the game that I'm gonna play if I'm in that situation.
Right.
So
Let's talk about something that's personal to you. Here in Southeast Texas, in Beaumont, Texas, we recently had an egregious crime. A 17-year-old killed a 23-year-old
right.
during a drug deal. But you mentored the 17-year-old when he was 14.
Well, I
right?
didn't really get to spend the time mentoring. I
Okay.
think that's why it was so emotional for me, because he was one of those kids that sometimes you try and stuff doesn't stick. And once again, you kind of miss opportunities when you, because it's only, I don't want to say it's only me, but I'm only one person, so I'm trying to make all these connections. I'm trying to reach out to these kids. So the ones that usually really, the things that stick are the ones that you connect with and they connect back to you. So there's kids I may not hear from for 2, 3, 4 months, maybe a year, but they know how to contact me
Yes.
when things get tough, or when there's a tough decision that needs to be made, or if they're in a bind or in a crisis. So, for this particular young man, I knew him, and we knew each other. We had contact and conversations through the years, and I just couldn't get to him for whatever reason. And sometimes they don't want me to get to him.
That's true.
And I'll be honest with you,
let's just say the truth.
Yeah, sometimes
They
I
want to be out there.
I have kids that tell me, yeah, Mr. Joe, I hear you. I love you. I feel you, but I'm out here. Thugged out. And that's the way I'm living. And when I see you, I come give you a hug and I talk to you, but this is the way I live. And I don't plan on changing that. If I do, I'll let you know.
Right.
When I get ready. And sometimes they do. They say, you know what, I got a kid now. I don't want to live like this. I want to see my kid grow. Oh, you don't want to be a thug anymore? Great. Let's talk.
Yes.
And so, and I'm okay with that, But on this kid, another thing too is when they move out of the juvenile system, historically, we lost contact with them for the most part. That's the beauty of revision. Revision goes all the way to 24 years old.
Really?
Yep.
What age do you start?
We started about 14.
Okay.
But I work with a group of students in BISD that are in 5th grade, and that's kind of a pilot.
And that's like 9, 10-year-olds.
It's about 10-year-olds,
Okay.
the 5th graders I work with, and those 5th graders are kind of a pilot program that we're doing as kind of a preventative program. We've been able to identify these particular youths that they're vulnerable to enter the juvenile justice system, meaning that a parent or sibling is in jail, meaning that they have all the earmarks when it comes to their behavior and their aggression.
10?
Oh yeah, at 10. At 10. So, it's a work in progress, and we'll see exactly how this plays out, because they're in 5th grade now, and what I plan to do is try to track those 5 students for the rest of their academic careers until they get to graduation and hopefully beyond. And the prayer is that we can keep them out of the juvenile justice system and ultimately out of the criminal justice system altogether. But they have a hard road ahead of them because their environments are difficult environments to grow up in. A lot of poverty. There may be substance or alcohol abuse. And there may be violence that they're prone to or susceptible to in those communities. So they don't even, and that's so concerning, because they don't even understand. As a child, you're very innocent, so you don't even understand the cloud that hovers over you,
Yes.
that you have no understanding or control over. It's just there, and it's hovering over you. And so I'm over here trying to keep the clouds away, and just hopefully it works. The prayer that is, if it works, it'll become more than a pilot, and we'll start trying to get more mentors and volunteers working in our elementary schools, because I used to always say, man, you got to catch them by middle school. You got to catch them by elementary now. You have to. You have to.
That is so young.
So young. You have to. You have to. Because by middle school, the pattern of misbehavior
Is it too late by then?
in some cases it is. In some cases it is, because they've already been taught from a very, very early age how to live around breaking the law. By now you're in 5th, 6th grade. If you have a family member who's hustling, you know what he's doing to support the family and pay bills. So that's already like, okay, I know that's gonna work for me. If nothing else worked for me, so as soon as I'm old enough or big enough, I can do it. I'm gonna do it.
Right.
And then if they're struggling in school, that's even easier. Because now by middle school, what do you get? Elementary school, you're with your class all day. The teacher's going to almost move you around as you need to be moved around. Well, guess what? 6th grade, all of a sudden, you get some freedom. So guess what? I can go walk right out that door.
It's true.
And disappear. I can hide in this bathroom as long as I can and disappear. And never be held accountable until finally my grades come out. But if my parents aren't paying attention to it,
And they're not asking.
No.
No.
Then all of a sudden you look up and the child's missed 20 some odd days. You're saying, why I drop them off every day? How do you mean I drop them off every morning? I know you do. But
And then you drive off and they go this way.
And they go this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's been something that, we have to continue to monitor and hope that we can get around it in some form or fashion. But once again, there's that group of students that we do work with from a prevention standpoint to see if we can head some of this stuff off before it gets beyond us.
Are you starting, Joe, to see more girls enter into kind of the crime lifestyle and making these decisions?
Yes, I am seeing more girls, and the danger there is sex or human trafficking. They don't understand how vulnerable they are to being sucked into that type of situation. So many of the young ladies that we do come in contact with have been traumatized, either abused, neglected, or exploited by people very close to them.
Yes.
And what does that tell a developing female brain? Is this the way life is supposed to be? Is this how it should be?
Because you don't know anything different.
Anything different,
Yeah.
Especially when it's a family member who's abusing, neglecting, or exploiting you, and you become basically a dollar sign from the time you're old enough to probably not even be involved in those types of things. And so that's very dangerous, and that's something that we see with our females, the trauma, the abuse, the negligence, and just the exploitation factor is just through the roof. And that's something we combat on a daily basis, is how do we protect these young ladies from not only themselves but from the predators that lay in wait for young girls. So that's very scary and very disturbing with the young ladies.
Talk to us and explain to us the school to prison pipeline.
Right, so that's something that part of our motto is breaking the cycle from school to prison pipeline.
Right.
So once again, we see, there was a theory that said that they built private prisons based on 3rd grade reading skills.
Correct.
I don't know if that's true or not. I've attempted to look into it, and I've seen some information that could support that, but being on the school board and working with juveniles, I can tell you that it makes sense. Because if your skills aren't at least close to where they should be by 3rd grade, it's a good chance you'll never catch up.
And that is so horrible.
That's horrible.
That 3rd grade,
Right.
give me a chance.
So if you look at something that we do, and I applaud our superintendent in Beaumont ISD, is we are really, really drilling down on pre-K through 3.
Okay.
Because if we can set them on a solid foundation, then they can set the world on fire, or at least get through school in a positive, productive manner. We don't need to be on the road. It's going to be some C students, but guess what?
Yeah.
C students are business owners.
They sure are.
C students are all these. I was a C student I didn't start making good grades until I got like 12th grade up, because I wasn't taking it serious.
Right.
I didn't even realize, I was whatever, and I went through the motions. But when I found out that, man, if you just work hard, pay attention, you probably can get it. And it was ironic because I struggled until probably my late 11th to 12th grade year, and I started taking school serious because of a girlfriend. And she was really, really competitive, and she was really, really smart, and I'm like,
yeah.
I ain't finna be over here, dumb Joe,
Yeah.
But that was a blessing, because when I worked hard, I was like, oh, I got a B. I just did a little bit. If I push it,
Yeah.
all right. If I go talk to the teacher and establish a relationship, she don't mind staying out there to help me. You know, she don't mind, spending the extra time and resources because now I'm just not the knucklehead sleeping in the back of the class. I'm going up to her and saying, listen, I want to help. She sees that you got the ambition and will to do it. I'm going to help you out. Mm-hmm. So by the time I got in college, it was good for me. And I had a good college career, And once again, I wasn't magna cum laude or anything like that, but I knew that the amount of work I put in would propel me to success. So, and that could mean average or great success, But I knew the amount of work that I put in. So, I don't know how we got off on that part of it, but
that's okay. But you know what? Your story is so inspiring and encouraging because I feel like it's kind of the typical child. Mm-hmm. You grow up, you make bad decisions. I don't want to study. I don't want to do this. But then at some point in time, you turned it around. Yeah. And now look at you.
Yeah, I know.
Amazing. On the school board, like an active, important part of the community.
I appreciate that. I hope I am. That's something too that when you talk about, what do you want to do with your life? I just want to be known as the person who was known for giving back to the community in some form or fashion. And if it's through education and working with juveniles, I'll be proud, and I hope my kids and grandkids and great-grandkids can look up to something saying that's what my grandpa was or whatever. He changed the trajectory of, education and how children and families, were treated and how ultimately they begin to thrive.
Right, yeah. Right. So we have, we've talked about it at length that, Joe, you are just one person. Mm-hmm. Revision Southeast Texas is one organization. Of course, we have IEA as well. Mm-hmm. What can the community do to help you to support Revision of Southeast Texas, to support IEA?
Just always need volunteers. And when I say volunteers, you probably say, what can I do? What's your gift? Mm-hmm. So let's just say, Crystal, what's your gift? My gift is, man, I can cook a mean apple pie. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Let me get 10 girls together. Let's get a space, and you teach them how to make a homemade apple pie. This how you work a stove. They like, how you work a stove? This how you make you some glaze. This how you chop up your apples. Guys, what's your passion? I love working on cars. You know what? Let me get all these guys, bring them to an old pickup truck, show them how to take this tire off, fix these brakes, put this car back, one weekend, a year. Just give me one. Hey, Joe, I can tell you what, give me 20 kids, and I'll come show them how to, build a doghouse. Yes, we'll take it. And it's just those skills that, you give the kids some skills, you teach them some stuff, and you never know what relationship may be formed or what conversation may flow from those interactions. So, just think about what your gift is, and it's a gift that you would like to share, and I'll take you up on it. We'll figure it out. We'll make it happen, and that's something I want to do because I want people to be wholesome people. I want people to have a broad range of things and ideas and ways to do things and hobbies. I started a garden several months ago, and it's like the biggest, joy and relief for me. It started off by like 10 by 10. Now it's like 40 by 40, my whole backyard. Wow. Yeah, it's ridiculous, but I love it, and it's good to see things grow, and it's just a neat process. So, I encourage people to, think about your gift, and whatever your gift is, if you want to share it, reach out to one or both of the organizations, and I'm sure it's a fit. We have a fit for you.
I was thinking about when you were talking about, your gifts and taking the kids once a weekend. My husband, he's, very successful now, but when he was a child, his dad would take him and his brother, like, out in the community and teach him how to pick up cans, cut grass, dig ditches, and he would always say, I'm teaching you this so in case you can't get a job, right, or you don't have a job right now, you can still support yourself and make an honest living doing these things.
Make yourself useful. Because if you can make yourself useful, you'll always be able to make a living. And that's what I like is usefulness. Make yourself useful, make yourself desirable, make yourself unreplaceable by what? Doing it hard, working your hardest, being the best version of you that you can be, and helping other people out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as we get ready to wrap up, Joe, and again, I'll make sure and have all the contact information, the website, the socials, I'll have all of that so you can reach out to Joe and volunteer and contribute and donate financially if you're able to. What would you say is your intention in this space? Not just working with revision and IEA, but your intention in this juvenile space.
Just to save as many lives as I can, and maybe look up in 20 years and see that there's an entire generation that has changed the way that they view themselves and the way that they view their community. And I think that if I can look up in 20 years and Beaumont, Texas is like the shining place on the hill because we're producing not only the best athletes that we're known for, like football players, but we're producing the best men and women that we can produce. Scholars, engineers, astronauts.
Yes.
That's my favorite. If we're producing just strong, solid individuals and this community is setting the standard for what should happen across the state and the country, I'll be happy.
Absolutely. And whatever we can do here on my podcast to help get that word out, to help recruit volunteers or donations, you are always welcome back.
Well, I appreciate it. And it's been another good, exciting time with you. It's always good. So we won't wait so long next time.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to my audience, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Again, if you want to donate, if you want to volunteer, I have that contact information below in the description box. Please click on that link and follow the instructions from there. You can get Joe's podcast on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.
Come on, let's go on a journey. Sit back, buckle up, enjoy the ride.